If your revenue has hit a ceiling in your creative business and you just can't figure out why working harder isn't fixing it, the problem is probably your business model. In this video, I'll be breaking down the 3 business models most creatives cycle through, why 2 of them will keep you stuck, and the one that finally allowed me to make 6 figures sustainably without burning out. And thank you to Circle for sponsoring this video. Okay, so the first model is the one that most creatives default to, especially early on, but it's also the one with the most problems. And that is the retail model. This is where you make something and you sell it. Maybe you're a ceramicist selling mugs at an art fair, or a digital artist selling maps and character art for D&D, or an illustrator selling prints, zines, or a self-published art book. And I want to show you what growth looks like in this business model because it's not ideal. So you have a product, right? So you either start doing in-person events or posting online to sell aforementioned product. You get your first few sales, and then almost immediately you run into a problem. Either you sell out, and now sales are flat until you get more inventory, or there are no more in-person events for a while and you have to wait. So you're gonna have this massive swing in revenue all the time, right? Or you have exhausted the pool of people interested in buying who already follow you, and now you have to grow your audience more. So you fix it, right? You order more inventory, you wait until the next event, you do a better job marketing, and then you make some more sales until you find another bottleneck. And the graph of this model looks like a staircase because you get sales, then the plateau, right? Because you have a bottleneck, then you resolve that bottleneck, and then it just is a cycle repeating over and over and over again. And this creates a cash flow situation where you have these sort of feast or famine seasons, right? Where you have this massive influx of cash, and then suddenly your business is dead revenue-wise for weeks or months. And that is extremely challenging to deal with as a business owner. And this is especially true if you're making physical work, right? Because if you're creating oil paintings or gouache illustrations, originals, sculptures, there is only so much that you can make with your hands and your time and the 24 hours available to you, right? And eventually you will have to come to a decision basically on whether you want to find a manufacturer and find products that are more scalable, whether you want to hire help when it comes to packing orders and marketing, and how big of a team you really want and how involved you want to be in this business. And those are some tricky questions that you have to ask yourself, and everyone's answers are going to be different. And to be honest, even digital products don't fully solve this problem because sure, while your distribution is infinitely scalable, demand is not. And you will have to go out there fighting for your life to find new customers every single day for your business. And that's a challenge. That is a really serious challenge that you have to think about before you pursue that model. There's a book that I recommend a lot actually called Oversubscribed by Daniel Priestley. And the core idea of the book is that the goal is not really to just meet demand. We want to always have way more demand than we can ever actually fully satisfy. If you were to draw a supply and demand graph for your business, we think about sort of the perfect point, right? The perfect price for a product where we always sell out, supply and demand are perfectly matched, right? But Daniel Priestley argues that if you want to take a profit in your business, if you want to have wait lists, if you want to have free time, you really want an earlier point in that graph, right? Where you don't have very much supply, but you have a lot of demand. That is the only position, Priestley argues, where your business can take a profit. And in practice, for the retail model, this looks like constantly sold out shop updates. It looks like long wait lists. If demand consistently outpaces supply, you will never have to discount. You will never have to run a sale. You will never have to chase down buyers. And that can be a really tempting proposition for someone in our shoes, right? That doesn't want to be on socials 24/7, that wants to be able to take a vacation and fuck off into the woods and paint for 6 months or whatever, right? And it's really important to think about how you are going to generate that much demand if you choose that model. And a lot of creatives stumble into this next business model almost completely by accident. You start sharing your process online, people start asking questions, you get views and engagement and results, and you're like, oh man, I am contributing to my community. And so you give back more, you teach more, you find yourself leaning into this role of becoming an educator, and eventually someone asks, hey, is there a course, or how can I learn from you, or how can you teach me this skill that you have? This could be an illustrator who has spent years building a fantasy universe that starts teaching her world-building framework to other creatives. Or it could be a D&D artist that launches a dungeon master's guide for building really cool campaign settings. Or it could be a ceramicist who has documented her whole slow living practice that starts a course on how to get started with ceramics, right? And all of these things, all of these courses are high value, they're entertaining, they deliver what they promise. We are not running a scam, right? We are genuinely just teaching someone something that is not morally wrong. I know that courses often have a bad rap, so I definitely want to very clearly state that. But I do want to talk about what growth, again, looks like in this business model, right? Because once you've built your course and you launch it, if the offer is good and you have built any kind of following, it'll sell, right? We're not doubting that here. And then you deliver it and people go through it and they get results and they enjoy it and they say thank you and you feel great about it, right? And they also feel really good about it. They got what they wanted, but then they leave. That's the problem. But then they leave, right? You have taught them the thing and now they have graduated. And suddenly you need new buyers. And unless you are growing your audience all the time, every single open that you have for this course, every single launch that you have for it will go a little worse and then a little worse and then a little worse, right? So we have this massive spike and then it plateaus a whole bunch because the people in our audience that have not purchased from us know about this product, but for whatever reason, it's not the right time for them or it's not the right offer. And if you want that course to be your whole business, you gotta, once again, get back on the content hamster wheel, find new buyers, do more marketing. It's a whole thing. The fix is to add something that keeps people around after they have learned the core thing, right? A place where they can stay accountable, ask questions, keep each other kind of moving along in this journey, even after the experience with you has ended. And that is where Circle comes in, who are very kindly sponsoring this video. I have used Circle to host my paid community for over a year now, and there is truly no better option out there. I tried a ton of other options, like Teachable, Kajabi, Mighty Networks, and all of them just weren't as good. What I love about Circle is how easy it is to use. My students love it. Like the backend experience for me and my team, also super easy. It's beautiful and again, so simple to use both for you and your students. You can host courses and community discussions and forums all in one place. I can host a live event and then have the recording and the transcript of that event be posted automatically to my students. It is so valuable to have like these baked in automations to a platform because it means that I can spend more of my time doing the thing that I like doing, which is teaching and giving students actual feedback to help them grow. I really wanted a place where my students could get feedback both from each other and from my team and I. And all of Circle's features, how they make discussion so easy in their general chat features and the forum posts. You can send videos and voice notes and messages back and forth. You can create group chats. Like, genuinely, it is so easy to foster amazing connections in communities run by Circle. And if you take a look at the leaderboard of my own community, people are so active. A vast majority of these students in my program are incredibly active every single month. There is so much conversation happening. People will leave each other detailed bits of feedback. They'll meet up one-on-one even outside of our sessions. And it's really amazing to see how Circle has created this incentive structure to foster this kind of community. In my own community, for example, I really love how we've been able to set up this recording library of all of our live sessions using their forum feature. All of these things just make Circle an amazing platform to be on. And for some creators, Circle is the entire backbone of their business. Like Joy Sullivan, a poet whose community generates over $300,000 a year in revenue, giving her the financial freedom that she needs to create at her own pace. So whether you're a writer that wants to teach folks how to write or even host, non-educational poetry slam nights, or you're a ceramicist that loves meditation and you want to teach people about meditation while also having a space to talk about your journey with ceramics, Circle can be all of that for you. And you can have your community be totally free to access and then have paid experiences inside of that. So it can kind of be whatever you want it to be. And I love that flexibility. And I say all of this because I genuinely love Circle and I use it every single day. So if you want to give it a try, there will be a link in the description or a QR code on screen to get started. The next business model is one that I see creatives overlook all the time, but I think it actually has a lot of potential. And that is a service-based business. The reality is that implementing even just small elements of a service-based business could easily double your revenue almost overnight. And whenever I say service, most creatives think about commissions and freelance work and client work, and that's not wrong. That does fall in this umbrella, but it's also not the full story. The truth is that your customers want something very specific, but they just don't know how to tell you. When most people buy something, like an original or a print or a sculpture or a commission or a piece of jewelry or whatever, they are not usually just buying that thing, right? And if you think about the last time you purchased something, I think you'll find this too, right? You're buying a feeling. You're buying an identity. You're buying a future that you want, or a world that you want to be a part of, a life that you want to live. Like you're buying a talisman of something. It's not just about the object level thing itself. If you are a ceramicist and you have this passion for ceramics, in part driven by your desire for a slow morning routine and intentionality and mindfulness and meditation, and you talk about that in your content, a customer is not just buying a matcha bowl for the matcha bowl, right? They're buying that version of their morning routine. They want that life that you talk about, right? They want that intentionality. They want that peace. They want that serenity. And that's a massive motivator behind their purchase. So if you really want to double your revenue, all you really have to do is ask yourself, number one, what is the actual thing my audience is trying to get closer to? Number two, what is the experience underneath that product that they really want? And number three, how can I give them more of that? A deeper version of that, but like a different flavor. And the offer ideas that you come up with here don't even necessarily have to be linked back directly to your creative practice. Like, for example, let's say that you are the slow living ceramicist that I mentioned earlier, right? So much of your content and your marketing is talking about that meditation, that mindfulness. You could invite, 20 people. Maybe you have a paid retreat situation where it's a meditation retreat and you give folks that morning routine that they really want. They experience what it would be like to use your ceramics every single day in a beautiful location. Maybe you have like a yoga instructor on site or something, and you just give them a really amazing vacation. So again, let's talk about what growth actually looks like here, because when you start offering service-based offers in your business, you're going to do a great job. And so your customers are going to have a really great time, and they're going to tell a friend, and then that person's going to tell a friend, right? And you're going to have this like word of mouth kind of snowball effect. In 6 months though, you will feel like you have barely moved. This model is very slow to start. That is the primary kind of negative aspect of this, right? But that said, cash flow is almost immediately going to be positive because you're not selling a thing that you've already done. You are selling a service that you have yet to perform. And so in that way, there is no need to house inventory. There is no need to purchase things up front. But that said, the service model does have some serious drawbacks. Like anything else, you are eventually going to run into a bottleneck, and that's your time. When demand outpaces your availability, like in every other model, you're going to have a choice to make. Number one, you can continue operating with just you and build up a long wait list so you are always booked out. You can stay oversubscribed, right? Or you could consider building a small team, even switching formats into a community model using a platform like Circle to start accommodating a little bit more of that extra demand that you have. And there is no wrong answer here, right? There is no wrong choice. It's just a personal decision that you have to make for yourself because some people don't want a team. Some people want to work for themselves just by themselves, and that's totally okay. And I will also say that a big problem with this model is the boundaries that you will have to set with the clients that you work with. You're going to want to give so much of yourself away, and you're going to have to be really, really careful to not do that. And it is going to be an uphill battle, especially for those of us like me that are people pleasers, right? That want everyone to be happy. You're going to have to get really comfortable with not allowing that to control you. And it's a challenge. And that's why I think understanding the model that you are choosing and the pros and cons is really important. But I will say that, in my opinion, I think the sort of strongest effects here come when we start mixing all of these business models together. So when you start stacking a community with a service-based business component, and then you have retail stuff on top of that, things get really amazing because we're able to mitigate all of the downsides of those various models, right? We're able to have a much smoother graph because our business is like very multifaceted. And I do not think that you should start all of that all at once. That's definitely a bad idea. But slowly, if you can kind of begin adding on more sort of aspects of your business over time where you feel passionate, you might be really excited and able to work a lot less while still making more, right? Because let's say that you were, I don't know, like a nature journaling creator, like my student Alex, for example, and you have both like prints of your work and books and courses and a paid community. Or you're like my student Kimberly, who has prints, but then is also starting a mail club that once again will give her that recurring monthly revenue. So even if you do have physical products, I would still push you to think about how you can have recurring monthly revenue that is very scalable. And don't get me wrong, I love the retail model. I love purchasing stuff from independent designers. Like this scarf is by an independent designer. And I love owning cool objects by creatives, but as someone that works with creatives day in and day out, helping them grow their business, having even just one offer that is not contingent on your ability to show up in your creative practice every single day, or your sort of inventory space, or your in-person events schedule is really helpful for cash flow. It is a game-changing thing when it comes to your ability to consistently pay yourself. And that is why you started this. You started this not to suffer, not to constantly worry about cash flow, but to pay yourself a living wage and not just survive, but actually thrive. To be able to afford a family and a nice house and a regular middle class lifestyle with your creativity. And that's possible. But you have to think about scalability in order to get there, because focusing on just retail can be brutal. It can be so, so brutal. And I want better for you. I want you to live an easy life, to live a life that's cozy and fun and creative. So that's all for me. If you do want to give a community a try, I do really love Circle. I will leave a link below to that. I will also leave a link to join my community, and I'm hosting a live workshop in a few weeks that I would love to see you at as well. I will leave a link that below. I will leave a link to that below and more videos on the screen to continue hanging out. Okay, bye.